friends. It's Sheryl from Tutoring with Sheryl, the tech coach for tutors. And today I have a brand new friend and a colleague, Tina McMillan from Atypical Tutors, who is going to be joining us. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tina. She's a mother of two, and she is a wife of one. I love that. She is both a certified behavioral consultant and a reading interventionist. So, hey, we've got something in common with the reading. She teaches children with autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and she's been doing this for going on 20 years. That's incredible. And her favorite thing is finding a way to motivate her students for success through observation, empathy, and an insatiable curiosity. So, Tina, I would like to welcome you to the show.
Well, thank you so much, Sheryl. It's such a pleasure meeting you. I'm so glad that we were able to cross the border, so we say, because I'm from Canada, you're from the US,
Yes.
and we have so many things in common. It's amazing.
We really do. You know, I should have mentioned exactly where you're from. So you say Canada, but Canada's a big country. You want to narrow that down for us?
It is. I'm actually just outside of Calgary, Alberta, in a town called Airdrie. So I know people say, well, I have a friend in Toronto. Do you know them? Well, no, we're a little far from Toronto. So we're kind of north of Montana, if that helps at all.
Yes, I've been to Montana. It's beautiful. So if that gives me any indication of where you live, we might just have to take a trip and meet.
That would be amazing. We share
that would be really.
Our landscape is very similar. Very similar.
Yeah, it's so pretty there. So pretty there. Okay, well, we want to start. I'm going to be asking you 3 questions. I'll be asking you about your journey into how you became a tutor, how you support your students, where we can find you, and then you'll be sharing an offer. So we're going to get started with, tell us about how you became a tutor, because when we visited before, when we first met, I just found your journey to be really interesting. So take it away. Tell us all about it.
Okay, where do I start? Do I start where I was born? No, I probably.
If you would like to go back that far, you can. Maybe start with like college.
Oh, okay. Well, I kind of started on a different path, believe it or not. In college, I took a course called Hotel Restaurant Admin, believe it or not. So I went through that route because I wanted to travel. I was born in Manitoba, Winnipeg, so still in Canada. And long story short, met my husband in Alberta, married, had kids, and was a stay-home mom for a while, and then also had my own businesses, that sort of thing, and started working actually with adults with special needs, kind of what I really enjoyed doing. I had, in my family, I had an uncle who had Down syndrome. So that was my first exposure to working with an adult with a special need of some sort. And I was a volunteer for Special Olympics for a number of years too, did with adults and with kids. Actually, with kids was so fun, like soccer and floor hockey. I got a few welts though. They don't hold back, and I don't hold back either. So they learned that if I'm in goal, you're not going to score me that easily. Just watch out. I don't take it easy on them. It's like, no. Anyway, so yeah, Special Olympics, and then started working full time once my kids were old enough. I worked in special needs schools, working one-to-one with kids, and kind of went from there. I decided I really enjoy this. The higher the need, almost like more complex the child was, the more I was interested in trying to figure them out almost, and figure out how to work my way in so that they would, accept me and be open to me and trust me. And then I could get so much out of them. Do you know what I mean? I could help motivate them. And we had so much fun. It was amazing. And I actually started working one-on-one with those same kids in the classroom on evenings and weekends. And it just kind of expanded from there. I really enjoyed the one-on-one special time that we had to get to know the family. You get to know the siblings, which are also called triggers. And you get the whole picture, not just the school part. Do you know what I mean? And you can, it really makes more like definite life choice like changes even, and help address the family dynamic as well, because that is such a huge part of it, and work with them and just, I just got so much out of it. It was so fun. It's definitely, it's hard work and it can be stressful, and some sleepless nights trying to figure out how do I get into this kid's head. And then, but it's so rewarding. It's just amazing.
So tell me a little bit about your behavioral consulting and how you kind of ended up getting either training or learning more about it, training yourself. What did that look like for you? Because there are a lot of tutors that could probably really benefit from learning more. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But how did you specifically kind of then narrow this down to, well, I've had all of these experiences. How did you kind of set up shop? And are you still going into the schools to provide services? What does that kind of look like?
Oh, okay. I'll try to remember your first question.
Oh, it
Well,
was multi. We'll just
yeah,
keep
exactly.
going.
We'll get there. We'll
Yeah.
get there.
Uh-huh.
So certification regarding that, I sought out the Geneva Center for Autism, and they offered online courses, which is what I need because I work full time and is still a full time mom, everything as well. So I couldn't just quit everything and go to school full time. So I ended up doing that online. So I've got my ABA and FBA. So you basically applied behavior analysis and functional behavioral analysis background. So I've always been kind of drawn to children on the spectrum, and I love kids with autism because they're each one is so unique. Not to say that every child is not unique, but in terms of autism, you have 10 children that have been diagnosed. You're going to have 10 completely different presentations of that diagnosis. So I just love that challenge to figure out, okay, well, how is it affecting them, and how can I help them to be successful and then figure out, well, they do have a future. A lot of kids, the funding and everything, the support ends at 18, but the diagnosis doesn't stop then.
Right.
And even to back up a little bit, as they grow, they're going to have different challenges that present themselves too. I have one student, he's the longest one I've worked with. I started working with him when he was 3, just before he was diagnosed with autism, ADHD, speech delay, dyslexia. He had like the whole gamut. And before he was that, and I said, it doesn't matter what his diagnosis is. We know I know the strategies that I need to use, regardless of as if he has the label or not. And I'm still working with him. He's 14. And he's come so
Incredible.
far. He's unbelievable. So it just means that you don't just stop. There's still go through different things. Now he's going through puberty. He's taller than me. His voice is like 3 octaves below me, which blew me away the first time I heard him, his voice change. But a lot of things he still does the same, but we still work through different things and different challenges that he faces. He has 2 twin siblings as well too. So there's that dynamic. So there's so much going on.
Yeah. So are you going to their house? Do you meet online? Do they come to your home? How does that look?
For the most part, I go to the family's home, because in that you can kind of, like I said before, you can see how the family dynamic works, and you can also use the siblings to work on different social skills. Like, well, you kind of set them up. Like, I'm going to set up this scenario. I know he's not going to like it or she's not going to like it, but I'm here. I need to see how they react, and we can help them work through that situation. Because if you never see that behavior, then how are you supposed to work on helping them to deal with it, and how to have the best strategies to cope with it, because it's not going to go away. So yeah, definitely go to them. I do have some online students as well. I actually have a student in Virginia, believe it or not, that I work with online, which is amazing. It's so cool. I just love technology when it works. When it doesn't work, not so fun.
Exactly. And, and I just referred somebody on to you. I mean, somebody that I thought, I think your services, I can help with the math. That's not the problem, or the reading, or whatever it happens to be. But I'm like, I think maybe this is a little bit deeper. And I think maybe Tina's the person that you want to talk to. And, you reached out to him. So we'll see if something happens.
Yeah, just yesterday. So there's still, we'll see. Time will tell what happens from that. So
yeah, exactly. So now, do you do some sort of a diagnostic, or do you just take the diagnostic that the doctor or the other professional has already completed, or do you just kind of listen to the parents' needs before moving forward? And are you only working on social skills?
Okay, well, in terms of the information that I gather, it's from all of the above. It's from the parents, it's from their doctors, it's from their assessments, it's from their IEP or IPP. I'm not sure what you call it in the States, probably similar. And I kind of culminate all of that together. And I also work like social skills as well, but I also work with academic skills also, and how, because they both tie in together. You can't have one without the other. And even with typical kids, they're going to have, frustrations, a subject they don't really care for, or they find too boring, or they don't understand. And, the teachers are overworked. They have so many children in their classroom. They can't always address the needs of everyone individually, and they just don't have the time sometimes to do that. And sometimes the kids, they don't know how to speak up for themselves.
Right. Yeah. I just this week, I was coaching a student through a problem with a classmate, and how can you deal with that? And this student has probably some tendencies to be overstimulated by sound, and maybe has a diagnosis that isn't maybe identified, but where's your plugs in the classroom? And then this student was nearby making a lot of noise. And I said, okay, so how can you advocate for yourself? And walking the student through those steps. So it wasn't just that we were talking about the reading and the math assignments and the things that, keeping track of things in the planner, but we were talking about what would be your next steps. Let's talk through that. So, the next time we meet, I'll say, how did it go? And if it didn't work, let's come up with a new plan, because that problem's not going to go away. That kid's in the classroom the whole year. You're going to have to learn how to deal with it. So I like that you're working with them to kind of take those steps. That's very, very good.
And the skills that you're teaching that child too are applicable to a lot of situations that they have yet to encounter as they grow up. There's always going to be that one person you don't quite click with, and you're like trying to figure out, how do I deal with this person? You can't, do other things that are nefarious. You have to cope with it somehow, find,
Yes.
positive ways to deal with it. So I totally get that. It's a fantastic approach.
Yes. I am curious, just from an outside view, how did this grow? How did you get your business to grow? People are always asking me, how do you market? How do you, get this to go? Did you work with schools? Did you contact schools? Did they contact you? Were you on a list, or how did that work?
I've actually never been on a list. I haven't contacted schools. All of my business has gone through referrals.
Good.
Occasionally people are finding me on the website, but for the most part, it's been referrals, which is amazing. I've not spent any money on advertising. So I've been very fortunate that way. Not that I had a big advertising budget to start with. So I had to think of, being more creative ways of promoting myself. So I did put everything into the website. I hired a designer to do that. And my daughter actually is a budding architect. She's an intern right now. So she's very handy with computers, and she's helped me from the design side of it, even though I did do a stint as an interior decorator, which is a long time ago too. So I have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit as well. I prefer to set my own hours and work my own time, my own schedule. So I've always been that leaning. So maybe that's why I didn't stay with the school longer. It was kind of when COVID hit. I was working for a company who went into the schools, and of course we had to stop that. I think March of 2020 is when March 13th, Friday the 13th, I still remember.
Yep.
Was the day that was the cutoff. And
Yep.
we were told we still got paid, which is amazing. But we couldn't go into the schools for a while until they decided it was safe. And then we had the certain protocols after that. So it was kind of that point where the seed kind of started getting planted. Well, what if I can do this by myself on my own? And I already had some clients I was working with privately. And I was like, well, I really enjoy doing this. I love the planning, the preparation part of it too. You should see, oh my gosh, I'll have to show you a picture of my office, all the materials and resources. Every day I live in fear of a fire, because this is going to be gone in like a second. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of the starting point. And then I think about a year and a half after that, after COVID, that's kind of when I decided to bite the bullet. I had enough clients to get started. And luckily my husband was very supportive too.
Yeah, it does. It does take a spouse that's supportive. I mean,
Yes.
if my husband was not supportive and didn't believe in my abilities to work with students, I wouldn't be doing this. He'd be like, go be a barista at a coffee shop.
Exactly. So luckily I had that as well. So then I just decided, like I said, the website, started my own business, and came up with a concept, Atypical Tutors. Actually from I don't know if you remember the TV show called Atypical. That's where I got my inspiration for that name,
Okay.
which, believe it or not, because I'm like, oh, that's a great name because it covers everything. Because I want to be, an atypical tutor. So that means I'm using methods and strategies that aren't typically considered, I'm hoping.
Yeah. I love it. I think you hit that just right where we're supposed to go. And especially if your website and just word of mouth is working. But there really are a lot of kids, I think, who are getting this diagnosis, or they're on this spectrum somewhere. Maybe we're just learning more about it. I don't know. But I was seeing that towards the end of my classroom experiences, more students that were having behavioral issues, maybe were maybe on the spectrum a little bit, or at least not able to handle things in the classroom. And I think your services are just going to continue to be needed.
Yeah,
for sure.
I'm almost sad to say that, because ultimately my goal is to give my students enough strategies and tools that they can manage life, and they won't need me anymore ultimately. Do you know what I mean? I
Right.
want them to be able to be independent in a lot of ways, maybe not completely, because maybe depending on their diagnosis, maybe that's not a possibility, but just to phase myself out is kind of the idea.
Yeah, and I mean, as far as like your current students, that is a great wish. But I'm just thinking in general, like just
Yeah.
the volume, I suppose, of kids that I see this with, and who knows what the reason is. But yeah, I'm proud of you. I think this is great. Is there anything else that you want to share about supporting your students and like how you've grown your business? Because if not, we'll go to where we can find you at.
I guess just I've learned so much as I've gone. Like I've always been like a self-researcher. So any topic I find interest in, I will focus on that, zero in. I've read so many books, and I've also taken reading interventionist certification courses so I can learn how to teach reading from a different perspective. Like I've always taken for granted, what it takes to learn how to read, and I just love the different strategies I've learned as well that I can also apply to my students. If I'm struggling with learning a new concept, then that puts me in the place of empathy so that I can understand where they're coming from, trying to figure something out too, because English almost seems like a foreign language sometimes, and trying even just going through certain rules that kids have to learn about, and they say, why do you have to do that? I said, well, I don't know, but for every rule there's going to be an exception, guaranteed.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, it's nice that you can support the children, not just with, their special needs, but also that you can support the reading student as well. And so, you are very well educated, you're well rounded. And so you're able to support those kids. As far as like the dyslexia portion, do you use a screener, or do you just take the information from the schools or whatever and say, yep, you have this diagnosis?
Well, I'm not able to diagnose myself. I don't have that background, so I will wait until they generally they come to me with a diagnosis already, and
Mhm.
it's typically pretty new. I've had one student, it was 2 weeks after a diagnosis of dyslexia that I started working with them, and they've come so far. And just a lot of it is confidence building. You can be so much more successful in anything if you feel you can do it, as opposed to being told no, you can't do it, or maybe not feeling that you're good enough, comparing yourself to other people in your classroom, other students. So building up their confidence is just a huge thing, and having fun, making it fun is the big thing. Because I don't want to do it if it's not fun for me either, honestly. Then I
Right.
lose my motivation.
Yeah, and I mean, just even the students that I've worked with over the past 4 years, watching them go from not being able to read to being able to, read. Some of them are already past grade levels. Some of them don't work with me anymore. They don't need me anymore. But then when you get stuck with the one student who does so well with you one-on-one, and then you get their report, because this just happened, got a report, and the report from the school didn't show what I've seen in our private one-on-one lessons. And then I was like, oh, all right, well, we're going to have to do more independent and less like support and less coaching. And now, because the student is at the point now where, they're a fourth grade student and they're not learning to read in the classroom. They're reading to learn. And so we're going to have to do probably a little bit more of that. Not that I don't want to give up on the phonics and, the sounds and chunking the words and putting it all together and, building up the sight words. But yeah, we're going to have to ramp this up,
That's the advantage that we have when being tutors, is that we have the flexibility to turn on a dime, even
Yeah.
partway through a lesson. If all of a sudden it's let's say they've whipped through an activity that maybe thought they would take longer, and like, oh, you got that, great, okay, well, let's do this. I always make sure I got a plan B, C, D, almost to Z sometimes,
Absolutely.
because you never know. And sometimes it's the opposite. We get hung up on a minutia of a subject, and then so we can actually do a deep dive in that. It's not a huge deal. We're not affecting anybody else. And then if we learn more about that subject that maybe they're interested in, that maybe you didn't know before, that's amazing. We've really encouraged them to explore something that maybe they just thought briefly about, in a time where we just pick up our phone and we can learn anything. If we can delve it and get more knowledge, and maybe develop that skill, the research skill is something that they're going to need forever.
Absolutely. And even just, I try to also bring in those everyday activities like um, reading a menu or reading a schedule, or someday you might want to take a trip. Well, we need to be able to read a map. I mean, there's all those skills that aren't necessarily just reading, but they're like making decisions based on your reading and real life decisions. So I love what you're doing there. Now, I have had up over here on the left side of the screen your website. So let's take a quick look at that, if that's okay.
Sure, absolutely.
All right, hang on.
I did want to just mention, can I just mention a couple more things, like in terms of life skills that I work with too, teaching money, even though we don't physically use cash anymore, but just the concept of how much things cost is huge when you just have to tap something or order it online and it doesn't feel like you've spent any money, just so the kids understand the value of certain things and how expensive things can be and how inexpensive they can be. And what was the other thing? Oh, and also here, I don't know how it is in the States, but here they've kind of stopped teaching cursive writing. So what I do is I actually encourage them just to practice just their name. So at least they might have a signature that they can use going forward.
I completely agree. I also take all of my second and third graders, some fourth graders, through a cursive. A little challenging to do it online, but we do work with it because, I can't remember where my husband and I were, but we were at the World War II Museum down in Kansas City, Missouri, here in the States. And they have all these historical documents. They were written in cursive. I mean, my husband was even struggling to read it. I'm like, well, that says, I was able to read it, and they're not going to type it for you. So yes, it is definitely something. And, if you want to sign for a house or open up a checking account or buy a car or something, you have to have a legal signature. So it's important to know that. So I love what you're doing. And the money thing is crucial too.
Absolutely. Yes. I have the fake money, which might as well be the real money, but whatever. That's a separate issue. So it's actually tangible. I try to use as many senses as possible whenever I'm doing my sessions, like sight, sound, touch, everything. So it kind of reinforces those synapses and makes the connection stronger in the long run. So that's another thing I try to do.
Absolutely. Well, now I don't know who did your website, but they did a great job. We'll just take a quick look at it. We've got your welcome, meeting you. You can go to her YouTube channel and subscribe. And I will leave the link for this website so that you guys can do a deeper dive, talking about how your behavioral consultant, your calming strategies and how you're going to help students through that, your multisensory approach. And then can I ask you about these tools that are right here, this zones of regulation and Orton-Gillingham and this EET?
Oh, absolutely. Like as like what they are, is that the question?
So are these tools that you use in your services, or are they tools that you want parents to use?
Oh,
that you're suggesting?
Well, the ones that I have used in the past, they're not necessarily always applicable to every student, but they're definitely techniques that I have used. And yeah, exactly. And if they want more information, I can totally give it to them as well.
Absolutely. And then you can get your free complimentary consultation today. And then we've got more on just your testimonials. And I think a testimonial speaks volumes, because when a parent takes the time to say, this is what worked for my child, and you can share that, it's so powerful. So
I've got like 4 more. I have 4 more to update. I haven't updated my sites in a while, so I have some more stuff to put on there. So more stuff coming soon.
Yes, absolutely. And then we've got your about, and you go through, telling about all of your background and how you service students. I love your pictures. I don't know who did your pictures, but they're great. Because mine are all selfies, unfortunately. Okay, and you've got your consultation here, and the things that you're helping with: behavioral consulting strategies, tutoring lessons, and okay, explain the last one: FSCD, behavioral aid therapist.
That's what they call it up here in Canada. If a child has given an autism diagnosis, they're eligible for FSCD funding, is what it's called. I don't remember what the acronym stands for at this moment, but it's basically funding that they get from the government that provides for a behavioral aid, which it would be my case. They have a psychiatrist or psychologist on staff. And if they need speech, if they need occupational therapy, if they need physical therapy, it provides a certain amount of money that they can be subsidized for. That's what that's about.
Wonderful. And also, sometimes parents are thinking maybe their child could be autistic, and sometimes they just want to talk to somebody. And I mean, you could totally hold their hand and help them through the steps that they could take to kind of find out, what does that look like? So yes, I love this. Okay, we're going to get over here to the more information, which is the drop down menu. And so we've got dyslexia, autism, ADHD, anger management, kids in quarantine, group plan, and video tips. And you've got a blog. And so you've got some things over here that people
Yeah.
can go to.
Again, I need more stuff on there. It's coming.
That's okay. Four best autism friendly games of 2023. And before we got on here, you were talking to me a little bit about beefing up your YouTube page with some of those games. And so that would be a great thing for people to go back to. And again, another complimentary consultation and your contact us. So that's wonderful. Let's take a quick peek at your Facebook page here real quick. And then I will ask you about your upcoming things. And so again, here you're just adding value all over the place. This is great. And I love the fact that you've got your little video there from 2021, but I'm going to encourage you to add a new one.
Absolutely. I've got tons of ideas. It's just the problem is getting down and focusing. I need to help to refocus on what to do first. Yeah.
It's okay. And I'll send you the link and you can update this directly to the link of the recording after I get it up here. But I love that they can just get in touch with you right here. So that is wonderful. And you've got a book now right there. So you're making it so easy for parents to get a hold of you. And, now that you're having this conversation, more parents are going to know about you. So this is incredible. Now, you and I have visited just personally, and we had conversations about kind of where are you going and what are you wanting to do. And you had mentioned building out a course or doing some other things. And then also just recently talking to me just before we hit the record button about some games. Do you want to share any of that with the audience?
Sure. Actually, a couple of different things. I'm currently creating a course for fellow tutors who maybe aren't currently working with students that have a diagnosis that we've discussed, like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, or a combination thereof, and to help them to use strategies that I've come to know and learn and to recommend and feel confident in, that they can use to also expand their businesses as well. Because unfortunately, there are more diagnoses coming in for whatever reason. I don't know what's actually behind that. I'm not sure if anyone has the actual answer to that question, but the diagnoses are increasing. So the need is going to be increasing as well. And I think more people need to be educated in how to deal with students like that.
Yeah. And, for me as an online tutor, and I really do want to stay online as much as I can, just because of my lifestyle and wanting to be able to go visit people, but still help students. I think it holds me back just a little bit. But if I was going to be in person, the strategies are just a little bit different, because these kids they just need a little bit of warm up. Those transitions, I think, are probably the hardest thing for them. Even in my practice, I've got a couple kids that are on the spectrum, and just letting them know before we even start the lesson, this is what we're going to be doing today. I tell them the order. Then I say, would you like to do them in that order? So I give them choice and they have voice. And usually they say, no, that's fine. And we get started. But if they don't want to do them in that order, then I allow them to tell me the order that they want them to do them in, because I feel like, and again, I think this just gives voice to student learners when you can say, what would you like to start with?
Absolutely. Oh, I 100% agree. 200% agree. I have a lesson plan, or today's plan, I call it, that is geared totally towards a student. It tells them kind of what I'm thinking we want to do that session. I'm open to them to give them opportunities to voice what they would like to do, or if they don't want to do it, I need them to tell me why. And if they can justify it, okay, no problem. I'm flexible. I can do that. And also give them what I have on the bottom. My plan is our break blocks is what I call them. There's little cubes. They're kind of puzzle shaped, because my puzzle is kind of my thing, part of my brand, that I like putting the pieces together, finding the missing piece. That's kind of how that goes. And so they can take a break, and after each activity, if they need to, or whenever they think they need to, and that kind of reinforces I want for them to be able to actually self-regulate and notice the signs in themselves as to when they need a break, because that's an important life skill to have. Even as adults, we need to know when we need a break, because sometimes we push through and the end result maybe is not as good as if we had taken a break to refocus and then try again. And I make sure that they know that the break blocks aren't for an escape. They're made to take a break and refocus and then come back and let's finish it. We got this. And then applaud them for coming back, refocusing, and actually finishing the activity that maybe they didn't think they could.
Yes, exactly. I even find that in my online meetings. Sometimes you just have to pivot quickly, and, having your resources organized so that you can pivot quickly. But yeah, I completely agree with you. And I applaud you for your efforts. I think this is absolutely amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to share? Anything else that you're working on? Any things that you're like, oh, we didn't talk about, but we should have? Because we can certainly add
Yep,
that.
there's another thing in terms of, we were just talking about a plan. I'm actually offering a free class on how to create the plan and the reasons why I created mine, and then someone else can take those reasons, rearrange them however they want, or use the same order, whatever, add to it, whatever, take what they will, and to help them get through their sessions. So I think it increases the child's trust because they know what to expect. It gives them a chance to give input. So many times they're just told, this is what we're doing. You're a kid, you don't have any say in it. Well, they kind of do. They're kind of the focus of why we're there. So they need to have input and understand why that input is so important and how to be more constructive with their input, not just saying, I don't want to do it. Well, tell me why. Give me a reason. You can't just say no because, even though maybe you've heard your parents say no because we can't do that. I get that. But, just to kind of create that communication and self-awareness and kind of build on those like social skills that they're going to need forever.
Yes, I love that. As you were telling me that you're creating this course for tutors, I almost feel like you could do a course for parents and learning how to do like conflict management with your child on the spectrum or whatever, or how to set up, daily routines. Kids just love routines, especially kids that are on the spectrum. They do not like to have surprises. They will flourish if you give them a schedule and you stick to it, but they'll also flourish if you give them voice and choice.
Absolutely.
And I mean, they're not always going to have you there. You want to teach your child how to kind of like regulate and plan their life, and you want them to be successful, and giving them a few little bumps in the road, that's perfectly okay. But I think that you could really, not just reach out to tutors. I think parents could really find your services extremely valuable.
That is a fantastic idea. Even it brought me back to a scenario back when I was in the school system, and the teacher was asking me what my student would think of something. I said, well, I don't know, ask them. You know what I mean? I have no idea what they're going to say. I have no clue from day to day what kid I'm going to come in contact with.
Yep.
I don't know. So you need to ask them what they think. And a lot of the times, like even another situation, same student where he was showing signs of some sort of an illness, and the teachers were concerned and wanted him to be sent home. So of course I was transportation, so I had to take him home, but they weren't talking to the student, and they were talking around him, and he could sense that something was wrong. He didn't know what. He didn't know what he had done to all of a sudden have all this attention and why we had to leave. And so I got down to his level and just explained it to him. This is what's happening. They think this is what you have. We need to take you home to take you to mom and maybe go to the doctor. And so just being honest and just, respecting their ability to understand more than we think they do.
Yeah. And my autistic children that I've worked with in the past and currently working with some students on the spectrum, they want to know. They want to know. They don't want this like vagueness. They're very black and white. And so the more you can spell that out for them, the better it is. And then, talking it through okay, so because of this, we're going to do this, and this is going to help you with this next step. It might take them a little bit to get there, but they will get there. You just have to give them time to process it. It all comes down to that processing time, and then giving them space to kind of work their way through it.
Absolutely. I could not agree more. Absolutely. Because when we're faced with a new situation, we need time to process it, just like anybody else. Even with our experience, there's still situations that come up. They're like, well, where's that coming from? What's going on? What's going on behind the scenes? And it takes us a while to figure that out too.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for coming on and for sharing your expertise. I think you've added so much value, not just to tutors, but also for parents. And you are such a valuable resource for others to learn and grow from. We've shared the information on the recording, but I will make sure that it's in the link. And then check back to Atypical Tutors and be looking for Tina's information. I'm sure she'll share it on her Facebook page. for any courses or any information that she's going to be sharing out with you so that you can grow and understand what a vital role as an educator you can play in the lives of children who are on the spectrum or have dyslexia or just need that little extra boost. And parents too, reach out to her because she's such a valuable resource. And clearly see that she's got a giving heart and is very, very easy to talk to. Tina, I want to thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure. My first podcast, so little scary.
You nailed it. You did great. Okay. Well, we're going to go ahead and end the recording. I want to thank everybody for joining us today. You guys make it a great day. And as usual, keep the learning going.